News Talk 1070 KHMO presents On the Mark with Mark Hespin. News Talk 1070 KHMO presents On the Mark with Mark Hespin. On the Mark is powered by Kunis Country Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area at 221 North 36th Street, Quincy. Faith, family, and giving back. That's Kunis Country. And now, here's Mark Hespin.
Good morning, Tri-States, and wherever you may be listening on the News Talk 1070 KHMO app. This is On the Mark. I am Mark Hespin, brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the Tri-State area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. They are the buying center of the Tri-States. If you're selling, they're buying. Tell them Mark sent you. Welcome on into episode 198 of On the Mark here on this Saturday, August 19th. Thank you so much for making me a part of your morning. Whether you're joining us here live and local on the airwaves across the traditional radio stations in the tri-state area, as we're broadcasting live from our KHMO studio here in the heart of Quincy, Illinois, or maybe you're joining us through the KHMO app or the On the Mark Facebook stream. We appreciate you joining us and making us a part of your Saturday morning. As always, reach out to me through the through Instagram and Twitter at Mark Hespin, MarkHespen. And as always, we want you to be involved with the show as much as possible. So follow the show on Facebook. Just search On the Mark KHMO on Facebook. All right, welcome on in. This is a busy, busy Saturday. This is the final Saturday without college football of our year. Clap it up. We have college football from here on out all the way through into the early part of the wee beginnings of 2024. We are less than 3 weeks away from the official start of the NFL season. We do have more preseason action today. We'll talk a little bit about that and kind of the decision that some teams are making to either rest starters or play starters, and why I think certain teams do what they do in making those decisions. But today continues our series. We started it last week with the AFC and NFC East. This week we're on to the AFC and NFC South. Next week will be the Wests. And then 2 weeks from today, the week before the season gets going, we'll do the AFC and NFC North. So my official predictions, my records, who's winning the division, what will they finish, what will their records be? Obviously, knock on wood, as long as there's no major injuries or anything that happens between now and then, I can amend things, certainly. We did have some movement in the AFC East with some running backs. I'll let you know at the end of the show if that's changed my mind with amendments for the team's records. We'll get into all that right now, though. Let's just get the show started. Hespin headline number one. Let's talk about the AFC South.
Hespin's headlines on the Mark.
The AFC South this year is going to be, to me, in my opinion, a really, really fun division to watch. You have a team that we all expect to be ascending, to be rising, to be hitting their stride, to be the next team to really compete for AFC dominance in the Jacksonville Jaguars. You have a veteran team with a last kind of hoorah type of all-in approach with the Tennessee Titans, the former number one overall seed from just 2 years ago, battling for relevancy. And then you have the two upstart teams that have decided to reset their franchises with new young quarterbacks with a really, really different approaches, a defensive head coach in the Houston Texans, an offensive head coach in the Indianapolis Colts. And so let's break it down. How do I think this division is going to shake out? What will we be saying about this division come the beginning parts of 2024 when the playoffs are about to begin? And I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to run away with the AFC South. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars winning the AFC South. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing with a record of 14-3. When you go through the game-by-game picks, I don't think it's insane to see the Jacksonville Jaguars exploding and getting to 14, 13 wins type of season. The Jaguars won this division at 9-8 last year on a 5-game win streak. They really started to hit their stride with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence coming together. They add an elite weapon in Calvin Ridley to that already very good wide receiver core of Christian Kirk and then Evan Ingram at the tight end. Trevor Lawrence has legitimate weapons. A big, strong, mobile quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Year 3, year 2 with Doug Peterson. A lot of continuity. I love that for him and this offensive explosion. Also, offensive line in a really good spot. Yes, Cam Robinson, the tackle, is suspended for the first couple games. They can survive that because their first couple games schedule is really workable besides the Chiefs. But you have Brandon Sheriff on that offensive line. And then defensively, they're nothing to scoff at with Josh Allen, Travon Walker, the former number 1 overall pick from last year. This Jacksonville Jaguars team, I think, could explode. One of the reasons why I think they could get to 14 wins. Now, again, that's high end. I'm predicting them to peak at the high end of their win prediction and win total, is because I think this division is really weak beyond Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is by far the best quarterback in this division. He's got a ton of weapons in this division, and he's got a really great offensive head coach. That all bodes well for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags to dominate this division. I think it would be absolutely shocking for me if the Jaguars didn't go 6-0 or 5-1 in division. Sweeping Tennessee, sweeping the Colts, and sweeping the Texans. Maybe they drop one game to Tennessee on the road in a tough battle. But I really think Jacksonville can run through this division 6-0. If you take those as 6 wins, you can easily find 6 or 7 more wins on this Jaguars schedule. They have games at home against Atlanta, at home against Buffalo. They're at home against Kansas City. So 2 of their toughest opponents, they get at home. On the road at New Orleans, on the road at Pittsburgh. Those are tougher games, but then they have a really good Week 9 bye week before getting San Francisco at home. They get Cincinnati at home. They get Baltimore at home. Who made the schedule for the Jaguars, right? Cleveland, a very winnable game on the road. Tampa, a very winnable game on the road. Carolina, a very winnable game on the road. So, yes, even though they get Kansas City, they get Buffalo, they get San Francisco, they get Cincinnati, and they get Baltimore, 5 really tough opponents. All 5 of those opponents are at home for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got a massive scheduling break. You are going to tell me they can't find a way to go 3-2 through that 5-game stretch? They absolutely could find a way to go 3-2 at that 5-game stretch because those games are at home. Even if they go below 500 and somehow end up 2-3 through that stretch, if they can sweep their division, that's still an 8-win team, and that's not including winnable games with Atlanta, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, winnable games with Cleveland, winnable games with Tampa Bay and Carolina. You can easily find me 3 or 4 more wins in that schedule, and all of a sudden, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a 12-win team. Now, I'm predicting them in the high end as maybe getting up to 14 wins. We like to go out on a limb here and make a bold prediction. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars absolutely could end up with the number 1 seed by the end of the regular season in the AFC. Massive scheduling breaks, a very weak division, the best quarterback in division, I think one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Him and his head coach, a ton of continuity. He gets Calvin Ridley, a massive weapon. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are poised for a really big pop year. Does that mean I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? Didn't say that. I think they're poised for a regular season pop year. I have Jacksonville number 1 overall in this division. Tennessee Titans coming in at number 2 in the division at 8-9. Things I like about Tennessee, they found a way to be 7-10 last year, and they've improved on their roster. Now, I think their offensive line is shaky. I think Mike Vrabel's a terrific coach. I think Ryan Tannehill doesn't really have to worry about his job. And I think that's one of those things with the Malik Willis pick last year. I think it led to some weird kind of controversy about Tannehill. I think he's healthy, And I think what we've seen so far through the preseason is neither Malik Willis or Will Levis. No Tennessee Titan fan really wants them to be starting week 1. I think this is the final year for Tannehill. I think he's going to play loose. He's going to play for a job either in Tennessee next year or somewhere else next year. I think you're going to have a pop year from him. You add Hopkins. You obviously have a very motivated and healthy Derrick Henry. They have Treylon Burks, the rookie wide receiver, who should only get better in year 2. Offensive line, little bit of a question mark. I like Peter Skoronski, but I don't necessarily trust the tackle positions in Tennessee. Really good head coach in Mike Vrabel. I could see them slightly improving on last year's roster last year's record by adding Hopkins. 8-9, maybe 9-8, depending on where. Tennessee will be in the thick of it for a wild card spot in the AFC playoffs. They should. Defensively, Simmons, Arden Key, they have some guys. They have Mike Vrabel, so they'll be competitive defensively, but it's an aging defense, and I don't love what they bring to the table on defense. Tennessee Titans have a very workable schedule as well. They do have some tough games. Cincinnati at home. They do have Baltimore at home. Some of their tougher road games at Pittsburgh, at Jacksonville, obviously in the division, at New Orleans to start. They get the Chargers at home. That's a nice break for them. But then they're at Miami late in the year, home against Seattle late in the year, and then that big game against Jacksonville. Maybe Jacksonville will be resting starters, and who knows, maybe Tennessee could sneak into the playoffs as a wild card team coming down the stretch with 3 of their last 4 games, Houston, Seattle, Houston, Jacksonville. If Jacksonville's resting people, they could win 3 of 4 down the stretch and be in a really good spot. So Tennessee, a workable schedule down the stretch if they can stay healthy. Their defense is going to lose them some games absolutely this year. Shaky offensive line is going to be a problem for an older Ryan Tannehill and a team that wants to run the ball. But DeAndre Hopkins is there. Treylon Burks moves into that second wide receiver slot. This team has sneaky offensive weapons, a confident quarterback playing for a contract. Don't be surprised if Tennessee finds a way to sneak into the playoffs. I have them at 8-9. Well, I'll reveal my official who's in, who's out of the playoffs coming on up in 2 weeks from now. We move on. I have the Houston Texans at 5-12, and I have the Houston Texans coming in at 3rd in this division. I'll say this about Houston. I have a weird amount of faith in DeMeco Ryans. He got a 5-year contract. I think this is a team that if you've been listening to On the Mark over the past 197 episodes, as we're on episode 198, you'll know that I've been very critical of Houston as an organization and how they run things. They're starting to turn things around. They got an absolute haul for Deshaun Watson. It was a very, very smart move to move on from him when they did. They've cleaned house from Nick Cassari and some other things. And now the Houston Texans have a rookie quarterback, a young defensive head coach who's a big motivator, and they have a stingy defense. You know, they have Will Anderson Jr., Jimmy Ward. And to pair it with an offensive line that is solid, the thing I worry about with C.J. Stroud is, do they have enough weapons for him? Young second-year running back. The wide receiver room is not great with Robert Woods, Mechie Jr., Noah Brown. I do like the fact that they stole from the Cowboys Dalton Schultz, the tight end. But overall, I think that C.J. Stroud might have had better weapons last year at Ohio State than he does this year in the NFL. That's saying something. I do think, though, there is a sense of stability and under the radarness with the Texans right now to where they will show improvement. Again, their division is weak. They could easily split with the Titans, split or maybe sweep the Colts and find their way to get to 5 wins and feel some good momentum with a stingy defense and an energetic young head coach by the end of the year. I have the Titans at 5-12, 3rd place in the South. As far as the Titans' schedule goes, I don't love some. Listen, they're just not as good as some of their opponents. So when they start the season on the road at Baltimore, that's tough. Then they have a home game against Pittsburgh October 1st. That's maybe a go-either-way game, but Pittsburgh I expect to be much better this year. They do have scheduling breaks. Like they get Tampa Bay at home. They play the NFC South. They have Arizona at home. That's a winnable game. Denver at home. That's a winnable game. Some tough games to wrap up the season on the road at the Jets in December. But otherwise, it's a workable schedule. It's why I think Houston also could get to 5 wins. And I finally have the AFC South bottom of the barrel is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, before you jump down my throats, Colts fans, I think the Indianapolis Colts will be the Chicago Bears of last year. Now, I think they win maybe 1 or 2 more games because, again, their schedule's weak. I mean, you're talking about your tough games on the road early against Baltimore, non-conference. I mean, Jacksonville's tough, but that's in conference. At Cincinnati late, that's it. Those are only tough, real road games. You get Vegas at home. You get Pittsburgh at home. You get Tampa at home. You get New England at home. You get Cleveland at home. You get the Rams at home. Tough games, but you absolutely could find a way to steal a couple of those at home if you're Indianapolis. And then again, your division is very workable. So I think the division's workable enough for them to sneak to 4, maybe 5 wins. But I think they will feel a lot like the Chicago Bears of last year. And what I mean by that is I think you're going to see a ton of gigantic, explosive, fun plays from Anthony Richardson. I also think you're going to see some moments where Anthony Richardson might miss a game here or there because he's carrying this offense. We don't know what's up with Jonathan Taylor. We don't know how Shane Steichen's going to be as a first-year head coach. We don't know if that offensive line that's aging with Quentin Nelson is going to hold up throughout the year. Just worried about the tackle positions a little bit. And a very nice defense, but it's aging. They don't love the defense there. And beyond Michael Pittman, who does Anthony Richardson have as a weapon to throw the ball to? That's a concern for me. So if Pittman, who's been injury-prone, tweaks something, all of a sudden the Colts look a lot like the Chicago Bears of last year, where they're dynamic at quarterback. Their quarterback can make gigantic plays, but he's getting his teeth kicked in. He's got an offensive line that's shaky. He's got very little weapons. If Jonathan Taylor's this unhappy, I don't expect Jonathan Taylor to have a gigantic year. I'd stay away from him in the fantasy football world. And then the aging defense now no longer with a defensive head coach. So I just don't know exactly how this is all going to come to Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis is going to find their way to be 4 or 5 win team, keep themselves out of the bottom of the barrel, but absolutely should be picking within the top 5 next year. They're in the middle of a rebuild. They have an unhappy franchise running back. They have, it looks like, a franchise quarterback as far as size and stature goes. So we'll have to wait and see. I think Indianapolis, there'll be pop moments. There's going to be some ugly losses for this team as well. Remember, the Colts weren't good last year. They were 4-12-1 last year. I have them basically the same record this year, only with some more pop moments and a little more positivity going into next year, because I think they did find a franchise quarterback to at least run with for 2 years before having to reset the clock on that position again. You're listening on the Mark News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. When we come back, the NFC South. Who's winning it? Who's making the playoffs from the NFC South? And there is a team in the NFC South that I think could absolutely have the number 1 overall pick. And I think they should go for the number 1 overall pick. I'll reveal all of that next. Live and local in America's News Talk 1070 KHMO, the KHMO app, brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai. It's on the mark.
I'm Mandy Moore. We can do great things when we stand together. With support from American Airlines, Stand Up to Cancer is closer than ever before to achieving its mission to make every cancer patient into a long-term survivor. Through this incredible collaboration, we are pushing cancer research to new heights. Doctors and scientists, team members, patients and their families all working and standing up to move progress forward. The fight against cancer never stops. Thankfully, new and promising treatments can help save lives now.
Flight attendants prepare for takeoff.
So get on board and join this mission. To learn more about how you can support this groundbreaking effort and get Advantage miles, go to standuptocancer.org/American Airlines.
Childhood should be the happiest time of life. For many, sadly, it's riddled with pain, rejection, and isolation. But Mercy Ships is restoring hope to some of the world's most forgotten children through free, life-changing surgeries. No one can change the world on their own, but together, with friends like you, we're putting faith into action and transforming it one child at a time. To learn more about how you can help, go to mercyships.org today.
1070 KHMO.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. Brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. They are all about the no-fear lifetime powertrain warranty on new and used vehicles. If you're in the market for a new used vehicle, head over to Kunis Honda Hyundai, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. Ask them about that no-fear lifetime powertrain warranty. When you buy from Kunis, you join the Kunis family. They take care of their own. Tell them Mark sent you, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. All right, Hespin headline number 2.
Hespin's headlines on the Mark.
It's time for us to break down the NFC South. All right. Last year, as a reminder, the NFC South was a disaster. No teams over 500. Tom Brady, he carried the Bucs to an 8-9 record. They were the Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, the Falcons, all finished at 7-10. It was neck and neck. But now you have some major turnover, right? New quarterback in New Orleans, new head coach and quarterback in Carolina, an official all in on Desmond Ridder in Atlanta, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are without the greatest player in the history of the sport. So, how do I think it's going to shake down? Let's start at the top. I have the New Orleans Saints as your 2023-2024 NFC South winners. I have them at 9-8, taking care of the division. Now, I think this division will cannibalize each other again. Why am I confident in New Orleans? First off, I'm not. But I'm gonna fake my confidence with New Orleans for two main reasons. Derek Carr is by far the best quarterback in the NFC South. He is. We have no idea what Bryce Young is. We have no idea what Desmond Ridder is. And what Tampa's trotting out is a hot plate of garbage. Okay? So you got Derek Carr. Derek Carr always remains historically healthy, and he's reteamed with Dennis Allen, who I don't love Dennis Allen as a coach, but Dennis Allen and Derek Carr were together in Oakland. Remember, Dennis Allen used to be the head coach of young Derek Carr. So there's continuity. New Orleans also has the best weapons in the NFC in their prime. You have Chris Olave. You have Alvin Kamara when he comes back from that short suspension. You have Michael Thomas, seemingly healthy and ready to actually play for this team. Plus, don't forget, you obviously have, the Taysom Hill effect and a very nice offensive line, a very solid offensive line. And on defense, it's older, but it is a defense with teeth, with bite, and a defensive head coach. Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore, and obviously Dennis Allen, a defensive-minded head coach. New Orleans gives this the safest feel. Now, we all know anything can happen, but I don't think I would be shocked if New Orleans won less than 7 games, 7 or less. I'd be shocked if New Orleans got to 11 or more. So I'm going to put them right in that middle at 9-8. And when you're going through the schedule, it's really workable for New Orleans. Tennessee at home to start the year. Then at Carolina, at Green Bay, home against Tampa. There's no reason why the New Orleans Saints can't start off 4-0. After that 4-0 start, tough game at New England. Maybe they drop a game on the road at New England. But then they're at Houston, winnable game. Tough game on the road against Jacksonville. There's a loss there. At home against Indianapolis, there's a win there. Then they have a tougher stretch in Chicago, at Minnesota. Those could be losses, but they regain some stuff on the bye. At Atlanta, a win there. Then they have a couple tough games on the road against Detroit, on the road against a Carolina team that could be hitting their stride late in the year in division. Maybe they drop a game there. On the road in New York late in the year, could drop a game there against a New York Giants team that will be feisty and fighting for the playoffs like them. And then on the road, against Los Angeles. So I think the Rams will be finding their stride late in the year. That's a toss-up game. Late in the season, then at Tampa, home against New Orleans, the Falcons, scrapping for the division, finding a way to get to 9 wins. I think the New Orleans Saints will win the NFC South and represent them in the playoffs. And don't be shocked if New Orleans makes it into the playoffs, hosting a playoff game because they won the division, and finds their way into the second round of the playoffs. Depending on how everything else shakes out, if a wild card team wins, New Orleans could end up hosting 2 playoff games and find their way into an NFC championship game. I know that's crazy, but if all of a sudden New Orleans gets to 10, 11 wins, the New Orleans Saints could very easily, in a weak NFC with a lot of up and downs, a lot of question marks, find their way to an NFC title game. Let me be honest. I think that when healthy, only Matt Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, and when healthy, Justin Fields are better quarterbacks in the NFC than Derek Carr. Derek Carr is 4th or 5th. I put him ahead of Kirk Cousins. I put him ahead of Dak Prescott. I put him ahead of anything that Washington's doing, ahead of anything that the rest of the NFC South is doing. I put him ahead of Jordan Love. I put him ahead of Geno Smith, ahead of whatever Arizona's going to do, and ahead of Brock Purdy. So there's no reason why that the Saints team couldn't be a real surprise for us in the NFC this year. Second in the NFC South, I'm going to the Carolina Panthers, but I have them actually take a step back from last year, even though I get to like them better than this year. I have the Carolina Panthers at 6-11, second place in the NFC South. Here's why. Obviously, I like the quarterback and coach. I like Frank Reich. I like Bryce Young. I think they're going to show success at times during the year. The problem I have with Carolina, what we've seen already in the preseason and from film in the training camp, their offensive line is a disaster. And that's not good for a small quarterback. I think there are going to be stretches where Bryce Young is missing games. They're going to try to protect him. This offensive line is not good enough for them to compete. They don't have a real running game, and he's got less weapons than C.J. Stroud. I mean, Adam Thielen, ew. DJ Shark, ew. O-line bad. Now, they have a very good young defense, but an offensive coach. I think there will be pop moments for Carolina. They will be disastrous moments for Carolina. And the schedule's not easy. At Seattle, Minnesota, at Detroit, at Miami, all before their very early bye week. The Carolina Panthers could be at their bye week, and they could be on a 5-game losing streak. They could be 1-5 heading into their bye week. Now, post-bye week, it's workable. Home against Houston, home against Indy, like a bounce back wins there. At Chicago, they lose that. Home against Dallas, probably lose that. At Tennessee, at Tampa, at New Orleans, tough stretch there. But then they wrap up the season home against Atlanta, home against Green Bay, home against Tampa. 3 wins to maybe claw their way to 6 wins on the year. Carolina improving, just not there yet. Tough schedule and a terrible offensive line. Third place in the NFC South, I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I want to make this known. Atlanta has, I think, the second best roster in this division. The problem is I have zero faith in Desmond Ridder. Zero. Now, I'm willing to look like an idiot, and by week, 10, around Thanksgiving, Desmond Ritter's playing his you-know-what off, and all of a sudden Atlanta is competing for the division. They very well could be. I just don't think Desmond Ridder in a 17-game season is going to pop like that. And I think Atlanta is a team that would be better served having a worse record with the talent they have and being able to be in the mix for the number 1 overall pick. But I think they just have too much talent and a really nice head coach to do that. I like Arthur Smith, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, a solid offensive line, a veteran solid offensive line, and a really nice veteran defense. Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, Grady Jarrett. But they don't have the easiest schedule either. Green Bay, Detroit, Jacksonville, all by week 4. Those could be 3 losses. They could be 1-3 in that stretch. And then they're able to bounce back with Houston and Washington and Tampa Bay. But then they're at Tennessee. They're Minnesota, Arizona, a late bye week. Post-bye, it's tough. New Orleans, the Jets. You have the Bears and New Orleans again. They have a workable schedule, but Desmond Ridder is maybe the worst quarterback in 80%, 85% of the games he's playing in. So I just don't know what to do with Desmond Ridder. I just don't know. So I'll have them 3rd in the division. They could be higher. They should be lower because they should want to get Caleb Williams and add him to that talent. They could skyrocket in that division. And finally, the team that I think will absolutely be in competition for Caleb Williams, the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Tampa Bay Bucks I have at 4-13. I love the veteran skill players of Tampa. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, and then that defensive linebacking core of David, Barrett, and White. Best linebacking core in the NFL. If I was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at the trade deadline, I would unload. I would just unload, especially if the season's going as bad as it is. I don't believe in Todd Bowles, and they may have the worst starting quarterback situation in the NFL. Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, neither of them look like the guy in the preseason in the film so far. A really brutal start to the year. I think they start 0-5 at Minnesota, Chicago, Philadelphia, at New Orleans, 0-4. Then they have an early bye week. That's not good. After the bye, against Detroit, 0-5. Start selling pieces. Trade Mike Evans for a 2nd-round pick to a wide receiver needy team who needs a weapon. Maybe you can get Carolina to overpay for him just to give their kid a weapon. Maybe you can get Houston to overpay for him just to give their kid a weapon. You know what I mean? Same thing with Godwin. Get a 2nd, 3rd rounder for Godwin. And then you start unloading your linebackers. Teams that need someone on defense. There's going to be teams that need an explosive linebacker. You got 3 of them. Start unloading. Unload the clip. Todd Bowles is not your future head coach. Go all in on the tank mode. And then be in the mix for Caleb bleeping Williams, who can reset your franchise. You'll load up with a ton of picks. Keep your offensive line. Keep Munch. Keep Tristan Wirfs so you can protect Caleb Williams when he comes in next year. And then you can load up with weapons in the draft and free agent signings because there's going to be people who want to play with Caleb Williams. Post that Detroit game, you get maybe a win against Atlanta, maybe, and then you have Buffalo, Houston, Tennessee, San Francisco. It's a tough schedule for Tampa Bay. Really tough schedule. And I think Tampa Bay would be really, really smart to go all in on the tank. And leading up to the trade deadline, they have 3 linebackers, a nice defensive line pieces. They have a 2 wide receivers who could command 2nd, 3rd round picks, depending on how needy teams get. And I think you could absolutely see Tampa Bay, if they were smart, tank into that. Todd Bowles is not your head coach in the future. Go find the bright young offensive coordinator. Go get Caleb Williams or Drake May. Reset this franchise. I have the Tampa Bay Bucks. I found them 4 wins, but I think that's the max 4 wins for Tampa Bay. The question mark will be Atlanta's schedule is really easy, and so if Desmond Ridder seems like he could be the guy, that's where I could be wrong, and Atlanta could find their way to 8-9 wins maybe, and then I'll eat crow. I just don't see him being the guy. So I have them scrapping for 5 wins because they have a really good roster, and the Panthers could be less, but I just have a feeling Bryce Young will pop at some moments, and they have a very workable schedule, and I like Frank Reich. So I'll take the Panthers at 6-11. The Saints could very well end up with double digits. I'll temper expectations and go to 9 wins. They win the division. And they could really surprise some people in the playoffs. A veteran offense, veteran quarterback, and a very nice veteran defense. All of a sudden playing a home game in the playoffs, that won't be fun for whoever has drawn that unlucky stick in the playoffs come this year. You're listening on the Mark News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app. Whoo! That was 35 straight minutes of awesome NFL talk. I just love it. This time of the year, you just can't beat it. You can't beat it. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Mark Hespin. Follow the show on the Mark KHMO on Facebook. When we come back, James Harden, what are you doing? What are you doing? He is putting himself in a really ugly category of players you don't want to be in. And so we'll talk little James Harden before a couple more quick NFL stories to wrap up the show. We're live and local in America's News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai. It's on the Mark.
Every 2 minutes, a child becomes a victim of sex trafficking in the U.S. It's happening right now. Don't change the channel. Don't cover your kids' ears, no matter how much you want to ignore it. Child trafficking is real. In fact, it's happening in your town. And you know what our greatest weapon against child trafficking is? It's our children. It's time to act with PACT. That's Partners Against Child Trafficking. PACT works to teach students to identify the warning signs of child trafficking so they can help other vulnerable kids around them. PACT student ambassadors receive in-depth training on the issue and design a project to raise awareness, reduce victimization, and disrupt demand. Any student around the world can sign up for PACT's online training program and learn how to stop child trafficking. Go to pact.city to sign up for the 1-hour course today. With PACT, we declare not one more victim.
At first glance, Terrence and Shania have nothing in common. Terrence is a musician. He is constantly traveling. He is 32 years old, single with no kids, and started smoking when he was 16. Shania, on the other hand, just turned 45. She owns a coffee shop. She is married with 2 kids and has never smoked. What makes Terrence and Shania similar is that they both have been diagnosed with small cell lung cancer, and it was caught early. That's right. Small cell lung cancer can affect anyone. The good news is early lung cancer screenings can detect small cell lung cancer before it spreads, when the disease is most treatable. Join Stand Up to Cancer and Jazz Pharmaceuticals to raise awareness of small cell lung cancer and accelerate the pace of research. Ask your healthcare provider about screening options that might be right for you or a loved one. Visit standuptocancer.org/lung to learn more.
Eating, working, living pain-free. These are a few of the things many of us take for granted. Yet for many United States military veterans, finding and affording oral health care is a challenge many of us don't think about. Dental Lifeline Network is looking for dentists who can change this. DLN is asking dentists and their teams to volunteer to see one veteran with special needs one time per year. Visit willyouseeonevet.org to learn more. That's willyouseeonevet.org.
I didn't ask to be thrown in the streets, but I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there for me.
For these kids who didn't ask to be put in this unthinkable situation, Covenant House is there. To learn more, go to safeplacetosleep.org today.
Hi, this is Jason Bucks.
Forecast from the News Talk 1070 KHMO Weather Center. An excessive heat warning begins at noon tomorrow and continues until 10 p.m. Thursday night. 91 today under mainly clear skies, southerly winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. Lows dipped out to about 74 tonight. Right now, 72.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by Cunis Honda Hyundai, your number one Honda and Hyundai dealer in the tri-state area, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy. They are the buying center of the tri-states. Listen, if you're selling your car, get off of Facebook Marketplace. That's a disaster. I mean, you got dudes messaging you like 2 a.m, like, hey, can I come look at your car? It's a nightmare. Cunis Honda Hyundai will offer top dollar. They have checks ready to go, and you do not have to buy from Cunis Honda Hyundai to sell to them. Now, if you're in the market for a vehicle, obviously, they have over 3,000 new and used vehicles to choose from. They are the leader in the tri-states. No fear powertrain warranty. Tell them Mark sent you. Okay, James Harden and the Philadelphia 76ers. Harden is doing what Harden does, and he's going all in. He's gotten fat in the past. He's not going to go back to that playbook. He's just now going to just outlandishly say horrific things about his GM and make everyone uncomfortable. Him versus Daryl Morey in the 76ers. Harden reworked his deal a year ago, remember? And in the hopes of like, all right, well, then maybe I'll get a huge deal this year. He opted into this deal this year in the hopes then that Daryl Morey would just trade him because it just didn't go the way he wanted to in this last season. And Daryl Morey, being the GM that he is and being kind of the outspoken guy he is, refused Harden's trade request to only the Clippers. And now we're in this disaster of a spot. James Harden is officially done and put himself in the Westbrook and Kyrie category. And it's a bad category to be in. That's a category where basically you ostracize yourself from about 90% of the league. 90% of the league does not want James Harden. They don't want the headache that James Harden brings, current James Harden. 8 years ago, 90% of the league wanted James Harden. Now we're at the point where he's old. The juice is not worth the squeeze. James Harden last year, in only 58 games, because he's not playing as many games, averaged 21 points. That's less than Kyle Kuzma, Desmond Bane, Bojan Bogdanovic, Darius Garland, an injury-riddled Klay Thompson, Keldon Johnson. He barely scored more points than Jeremy Grant in Portland. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. And the end is way closer for James Harden of his playing career than we thought. He's becoming like Carmelo Anthony, where it just ended so quickly. Now, Carmelo, at the very end, was like, all right, I'll come off the bench, and I'll just try to be a scorer and do what I do. And it was able to hang on for a couple years, get a couple more contracts, and maybe ring chase a little bit. Harden is becoming like Westbrook, where it's like, oh, no, that dude can still play, but why would you want him? He's not going to give you the defense of a younger player. He's not going to give you the offense that you want because he's ISO, and he has to basically play like this pseudo point guard. He's not explosive anymore. He takes a ton of shots, and who knows what he'll say and do when the season ends. He's the opposite of LeBron and KD, who are aging like fine wine and will stay in the league as long as they want. And so, I mean, who honestly wants James Harden? Where would he fit? Maybe with the Clippers, but I don't think they're going to give up what the 76ers want. It's an ugly scene. I could see him in L.A. with the Lakers, but the Lakers aren't going to give up the sun, the earth, and the moon to get James Harden. I think he would fit with LeBron and AD, and they could use him. They could handle the star power and the pressure. But the 76ers are going to lose this trade, and maybe they're better off for it in the sense that you surround Embiid with shooters. You just go all in Embiid, but it's a tough scene for Philadelphia 76ers fans. And if you're James Harden, you're just entering into this mode of your career now where you're Kyrie, you're Westbrook, you're whiny, you're overpriced, and you're non-fit for a lot of the NBA. Wrapping up the show next, live and local on America's News Talk 1070 KHMO, the KHMO app. It's On the Mark, brought to you by Kunis Honda Hyundai.
On Sunday, September 3rd.
Show.
This is a recent development. And you know what else is a recent development? The entire breakdown of the family, the breakdown of respect for life, the breakdown of law and order, the breakdown of a morally based ethical society, a breakdown of respect, a breakdown overall of American society. That has changed.
The Dana Show.
Saturday nights on KHMO and on the KHMO mobile app.
I'm Danny Schaefer, lifestyle content creator. My little brother was just 33 when we lost him. If you know someone taking opioids, have a safety plan and talk about it. Be prepared. Learn how at reversesilence.org.
1070 KHMO.
Welcome on back to On the Mark here on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app, brought to you by the great people at Kunis Honda Hyundai and their No Fear lifetime powertrain warranty. Ask them about it. Shop online at shopkunis.com. If you can't get into the dealership this weekend, 221 North 36th Street in Quincy, tell them Mark sent you. All right, couple quick hitter NFL topics to wrap up the show here. Running backs added to the AFC East. The Jets get Dalvin Cook. The Pats get Zeke. Listen, the Pats need as many weapons as possible. So I don't hate the Zeke deal here. I think that Zeke is a guy that will be very interested to see what he has left in the tank. It felt like it just got stale there at the end. It felt like the Cowboys got predictable with Zeke at the end. And it feels like Zeke's not the same player he was 6 years ago, obviously. But I feel like Zeke, when healthy, can still be 700-800 yards, 6-7 touchdowns, and is still a nice receiver out of the backfield. So I like that move, especially because they got him for basically nothing, a couple $1 million. It's a really, really affordable deal for the Patriots. Same thing with Dalvin Cook. I mean, Dalvin Cook, I think I'm still shocked. If you would have told me 7 months ago that we'd be talking about Dalvin Cook on a 1-year deal and not, I mean, it would have blown me away because he still, when healthy, to me is one of the most electric backs in the NFL. So I expect to see a fully motivated Dalvin Cook. Now, I already gave you my AFC East predictions. I think this doesn't change anything. I think it solidifies my feelings even more. Remember, I said the Jets, it all depends on the offensive line. But I think having Dalvin Cook, a veteran running back, who's going to be motivated to have a big year, will help make the Jets that 10-win team I predicted them to be, even with the bad offensive line. And I think for the Patriots, again, it just improves them even more as the best fourth-place team in the NFL. They will finish fourth in their division and be the best fourth-place team in the NFL. And maybe, as I said, if things fall apart ahead of them, even more so why I think they could be a sneaky NFL playoff team. The Bears are sitting their starters. This is really in the preseason. Listen, resting starters in the preseason, I think basically has come down to the fact that on social media, if your star players get injured in a preseason game, you are going to get roasted. You are going to be obliterated by the fans and the media. If your star player gets hurt in a joint practice or a practice, what do we all say? Well, it's practice. It happens. That sucks. But no one's getting demolished because players need to practice. It's just the way it works. And I do think with the fact that the Bears just had 4 days of joint practices against the Colts, 3 days or something like that, and all the footage came out and Fields looked great, yeah, sit him. Because if your player gets hurt in a preseason game, you will get annihilated by the media and the fans. If your player gets hurt during a practice, well, it's practice. They got to practice. What can you do? So I think it's so much of that mentality. I personally like to see the starters still get a series or two just to get that reps of the game day tradition, but I'm okay with and comfortable with this. Sam Howell is going to be your starter in Washington. Listen, I predicted the NFC East last week, and I think that the Washington Commanders are in a tough spot. I don't have a ton of faith in Sam Howell. I think if you're an organization like the Commanders, your goal should be, like I just talked about with the Bucks, at the end of the year, you're drafting high enough to either get Caleb Williams or Drake May, and you are getting a brand new coach and restarting your franchise. That's how I feel, but maybe Sam Howell could prove me wrong. Good luck to the kid. I don't wish him any ill will. And finally, the Ravens are adding Jadeveon Clowney. Yeah, I like it. They're a win-now team. He's a win-now player. He can come in like the Bears with Yannick Ngakoue and just rush the passer on certain situations with a very solid organization and a defensive coach, culture. So I like it. I'm all about Jadeveon Clowney finding a home there. And let's be honest, this AFC North is going to be really, really competitive. Can't wait to talk about it in a couple weeks from now. Enjoy your Saturday of football. Enjoy the Cubs playoff race. I didn't get to talk about any Cubs baseball today. That's all right. We'll find some time to talk about it maybe as they keep the playoff race interesting. Enjoy it. We'll see you next week for another live and local edition of On the Mark on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the KHMO app.
Let's face it,